So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for the fourth roundtable of 2023. I'm Lindsay Birch, Director of Marketing and Client Engagement here at the Edison Awards. We also have Sherry Salzman on the call from our team. She's the Director of Operations. She's going to make sure that everything is functioning correctly technology-wise, so thank you, Sherry. As you know, we opened nominations for the 2024 Edison Awards last month. So this felt like a great time to provide some insight and tips from the experts on how to create a winning nomination. If there are topics that you'd like to see covered in one of these sessions, please let me know. We have a global network of over 50,000 people. So we have a number of experts across every industry who would love to share their knowledge with the universe. So please, if there's something you'd like to learn more about, shoot me an email or give me a call. I would now like to introduce you to our esteemed panel today. We're very fortunate to have Mark Jones, Susan Turkle, Tiffany Otten, all with us to share some of their expertise. If you have questions or comments during the presentation, please feel free to utilize that chat function, but the group is going to leave about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Mark, your facilitator. Mark Jones retired after 31 years in the chemical industry. His career took many twists and turns. He spent the last decade working directly with the Chief Technology Officer at Dow Chemical. In that role, he addressed corporate strategy, sustainability, and was responsible for communication around innovation. Mark became interested in awards and how they serve to illuminate innovators. He determined that awards create value. Over the years, he's helped in the crafting of hundreds of awards packages and has been a judge for many individual, team, and product awards. This experience more than qualifies him to address today's topic on how to craft an effective awards nomination. So with that, the floor is yours, Mark, and you can go ahead and present.
Okay, I believe I've turned on sharing. But before I jump into that, I'm very fortunate to have two wonderful people on with me. So I will briefly let them introduce themselves. So Tiffany, why don't you say a couple of words about yourself?
Thank you. So my name is Tiffany Otten. I have a very small boutique agency called Tiffany Otten Consulting. We focus explicitly on kind of the founder CEO startup model where you're just ready to get going on something, but you don't know how to get it actually to market. So Edison Awards is actually a effective part of the strategy for some of the more innovative people that we work with and something that's become quite close to our heart. So having gone through this process before and really having to do a lot of the honing that we're going to talk about during this presentation, this was just a can't miss opportunity to share some of that experience with you folks.
Okay, and Susan, a couple words about yourself, please.
I'm Susan Turkle, and I have run my own agency for 27 years. I'm an independent consultant in the big realm of overall corporate communications, including public relations, investor relations, marketing, communications, and awards. And the work I've done in the awards has spanned about 2 decades, during which time I think I've once counted, but let's just go with hundreds upon hundreds of awards. I feel that I've developed an expertise in finding that special sauce for my clients, which are global. So it's really nice to be here. I've worked at the Edison for years and won several on behalf of my clients. So truly an honor, and I look forward to sharing our knowledge with all of you today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for having us, Lindsay.
Well, thank you both, Tiffany and Susan. So I think what we crafted is something that you guys will find both interesting and informative. So I'm certainly optimistic that we will hit both of those marks as we move forward with this. As you've heard, all of us have a long experience with awards, and we're going to offer our observations and tips for what we think have been made our efforts successful. Certainly, I have reviewed many awards, both at the personal and for products, and I think that certainly gives some insight into what makes an effective award package. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of flash up something here that is the oops, what's going on? There we go. This is pretty much what our outline is going to be here, but it also is something that I find very useful is for any communication, and an awards nomination is just that. It's a communication tool, and you have goals, you have audiences and things with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to march through this. We're going to start talking about what the goal of an Edison Award is, who the audience really is, and then delve into strategy, tactics, and tools that will help you make an effective award package. So the goal of submitting something for an Edison Award is to win an award, right? That's what you're doing it for. So that seems kind of self-evident. It does require that you understand what it takes to win, and we're going to talk about that certainly today, and for you to know what really matters to most of the judges, and we're going to touch on that as well. So I've kind of thrown a curveball at my presenters, because this slide's going to show up again, so don't worry, Susan and Tiffany. But there's two words that really help to define what the goal of an Edison Award is, and that is that Edison Awards recognize innovation, and innovations require that you have an invention and that invention has impact. So when we're putting together packages for Edison Awards, for almost any innovation award, you really want to focus on those two things. And I'm going to do just a little bit of explaining about what that means. So you have things, and this is a picture of C60 buckyballs. This won the Nobel Prize. It was clearly really inventive. But surprisingly to me, there really have been like no applications of C60. It is very inventive. No one has found a way to make it as this C60 molecule is useful. So it really isn't a big innovation. It has no use there. There are things that are very useful. This is something that I actually welded in my shop so people would stop stealing my silverware at work. And by welding the fork and the spoon together, I kept people from stealing it because there was only one of those. But the spork was known by other people before, so this is a useful thing, but it's not inventive. There are other things that occasionally, you hit yourself in the forehead going, well, why didn't I think of that? And many of those can be things that are assemblies of known technology. In my case, I knew about Thermarest, these self-inflating mats that you take camping. I knew about check valves. I knew what those were. I knew how flow would go in only one direction if you just put a check valve into a device. I also knew about the whoopee cushion, but I never put it together the way Russell Morris Sullivan did to make the self-inflating whoopee cushion. And having taken things that were known things and putting them together in a new way, he did make something that was inventive. And if you think that having a toy is impactful, this would be something that could be both impactful and inventive. So as we think about Edison Awards, we certainly want to think about those types of expressing how we are both inventive and how we're making an impact. So if impact is in use and making a difference, invention is not obvious and differentiated. So I think Tiffany, do you have some more comments you'd like to make?
Yes, I would say that this is not even just with Edison Awards, but any type of marketing communication in general, possibly the hardest for people that are close to their products to hone in on. There is an exercise I like to take my clients through where we just say, so what, 5 times. Most people stop at around 2 or 3, and you've heard a lot of the features and benefits conversations, but most people stop the first time they get an inkling of a benefit. But I would argue that that is not yet the impact. And I'll give you one example of a relatively recent innovation that when you go through those steps, you can see how the argument about what your product, what you're going to be putting in for an award for, you'll probably recognize some of the steps that you've taken and maybe where you've stopped that's short of the impact that you need for your invention. So if we talk about rain sensing wipers as an example, they're pretty cool, right? So you can start off with, this is really neat. It senses rain. Well, so what? So, well, that means that you don't have to tinker with the settings. So what? Okay, that's, I don't mind doing that. That's not a hassle, but your visibility is better. No, you're kind of into a benefit, but is it enough to really impact the world? Not necessarily. Let's say, so what again? Well, now we're going to be less distracted while we're driving. That 5th so what, though, is going to get us to the point. Because again, okay, people are distracted all the time. Well, you and your family will be safer as a result of this invention. Well, okay, well, now I'm paying attention. So the question then becomes, how do you take that so what down the road impact and reverse engineer into how you communicate it to people to care? Because you have to now put yourself through that ringer over and over again to make that message clear, and then find a way to say it simply and earn the right to explain it. Nobody wants the full story out of the gate. You have to make that impact powerful and quick. And then you may have earned the right to explain it further. But nobody cares about the details as much as you think that they do until you get to that point to earn that trust. And I think that not just with the awards, but when you're going to market after you've won your award, you need to have this down pat. That one person you hate explaining to somebody what you do because they never get it, that's who you need. That's who you need to talk to in your life, because you have to be able to make them get it too.
Susan, did you want to offer any comments?
Sure. To Tiffany's point, differentiation across any communications program is a way to have your product, business, operations people stand out. In this case, I suggest, looking at, is your invention different? Is it the only one of its kind? Is it the first of its kind? Is this just a new or improved version that's like nothing else on the market? And I think that when you are looking at these points, to share some of the proof points behind that, so that your invention can stand out, and also any results from the impact of your invention. What results can you share? And, speaking again to Tiffany's point, it reminded me of a story several years ago, a few decades ago. I went and saw a Forbes reporter speak about media relations and media placement. And he said that he gets so many pitches across his desk every day, and what makes it stand out. And he said, I don't want to use the bad words, but the ones that make him go, no, SHIT, or make his jaw drop, are the ones that rose to the pile. And I think it's the same thing in awards. When you can have that no SH approach, that's what I think can rise, to the top for judges to see. So are you different, and how?
And to add to that, you love your invention. It's your baby. Of course, you're going to love it. You have to be willing to take that outside step, as Susan's saying, like it's got to be angled against the competitor, other things that are out there. Expect it to get picked apart, because if you can't handle it being picked apart, you're not going to get to the impact statement that you really need.
Okay. So what we've really kind of described there is that a great Edison Award kind of is at the intersection of this, Venn diagram of impact and invention, where the overlap is high. That's where you really have the ability to have a winning Edison Award nominee. There are a couple of other little things. One of the things we do have to raise up is that there is a time limit, right? The Edison Awards have brought to market within a time window. So we can't go back and pull things from Thomas Edison's era here. We do have to actually have things that are current and just introduced to the market. And we can answer questions about that if you have them as we move forward. So a little bit of discussion about the judges. I think all of us on the call may have been judges in the past for certainly different awards. Judges are, in general, intelligent people, hopefully, and they are more often than not generalists. So I often would tell people that what you want to do is not stay in your hallway. You want to go to a different hallway or a different building and pretend that you're explaining your innovation to those people who are not immersed in your particular technology. Tiffany, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, along with this comes with, the danger of being the smartest person in the room. Most of the people who are submitting for an Edison Award, you're going to have had this moment where you're like, holy crap, I have thought of something amazing. And you're going to be used to that enthusiasm. You're going to probably be used to knowing the most about a certain topic. And that can be your blind spot if you're not careful, because you're already coming from this place way up here of the deepest possible understanding of your product. But the people who are going to award the awards, the people who are going to buy your product down the road that are actually going to turn it into reality, they're not there. And you have to somehow be able to come back and speak to them where they are and then invite them to join you. And that starts with the judges. And that also starts with your go-to-market strategy, both before, during, and after your awards. And I have historically over the years found that is probably, just being very candid with you, the hardest personal challenge of every founder I've ever worked with, because they know in their bones, this is big, it's a thing, but they're going to be sensitive on occasion to you poking holes in that. But if you can't poke the holes in that to really make them articulate the why behind all of this, that idea can't get traction. So it starts here with the judges, but it also goes right down to all of your go-to-market strategy as well.
Yeah. And one other small point that I'll touch on something Susan said earlier. She was mentioning I think, guy at New York Times with the pile of stuff. Judges aren't just reviewing your application. We will get many. So you do want to stand out from the pile, as it were, as you move forward. And so we've kind of now gone through what the goal is, who the audience is, and now we're really going to delve into, I think, where we can give you the most help, which is in what the strategy is and trying to pull that together. And I think there's a couple of things that we can say. First of all, you really want to focus on the substance. You want to get to the points quickly. You don't want to leave any judge wanting to know more. You want to hit hard with the things that are most differentiated about your product. You really want to sell the technology. You want to make it both compelling and approachable, because remember, the judges are generalists. They aren't experts in your field. And Edison somewhat forces this, but you do have to be concise, and it is frequent. One of the things that people occasionally miss is that it's actually somewhat harder to be concise than it is to be long-winded. And there are, there are, quotes from Mark Twain. If you want me to talk for 2 hours, I can do it right now. If you want me to talk for 10 minutes, give me a couple of weeks to prepare. And Edison really makes you sit down and focus on that, being concise while still hitting all of the chords that you need to hit to sell the judges. So Susan, did you want to say something?
Over the years, I've had many clients express to me that some of their proof points, or some of those things that would, validate their entry, is proprietary. But yet you really do need to include some of that data. So I feel as though there are many ways to sort of skin that cat. And it is really important to try to figure out what numbers or results that you can share. If you can't share specific numbers, that's okay. Think percentages, averages, rounded numbers rather than specifics. There are plenty of ways to cite growth, and sharing exact figures and not sharing exact figures that you may deem confidential and proprietary. And I think when you think about the Edisons, you also have to, give thought to what you are willing to include, because those results, or, and maybe they're research results, maybe they're something that entered the market and you have early sales results, whatever it is, it's important to figure out how to distill and discern what you can share to support your entry.
And if you're coming into this as a smaller company, because you'll have noticed over the years, you'll have giant companies like the ConAgras coming in that have an R&D arm. They have a marketing team, like they've got that. But a lot of the other people coming in are coming in where it's a couple of people who invented something in their garage last year, and they have just as equal standing, which is possibly my favorite characteristic of the Edison Awards. But you can be scrappy with this, to Susan's point. Exactly. You don't have to say, company X implemented our software and they saved $42 million. You don't have to do that. You can have a really good testimonial that speaks to the heart and have the exact same impact, because you don't have a 5-page case study to support. You have about this much window on the screen to type in what you have to do. And it's a great exercise for getting to the point as well. But it's that same step of getting the permission to keep going, be impactful, and make them want to actually learn more, but you don't have to overwhelm them.
Yep. Susan, did you have some more additional comments?
One of the things that I think is really important, not to just address these results, but if you're looking at the bigger picture strategy for an awards program, I think sometimes people miss the boat, and this is something I'm constantly recommending to my clients, is that if you have something, sometimes people can't figure out what category it should go into. And there is nothing wrong with taking your entry and you submitting it across many categories. Sometimes that's better if you're competing against another department in your own company. Sometimes it can be, and it depends on the program, but in Edison.
Uh-oh.
Seems like Susan froze for me. Is she freezing for you too, Tiffany?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll hope to get Susan back.
And they have so many different categories, and all it requires is a little bit of tweaking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can
Yeah,
now.
it came back, but I think we're okay.
Okay. I'm not sure the last thing you heard, but at any rate, it is really important to consider entering your same entry across other categories. It just requires a little bit of tweaking perhaps, but I understand that the Edison is even offering the ability to do that at a reduced rate. So if you've got your entry and you want to just tweak it a little bit, increase your odds, increase your chances of winning. Don't compete against another department in your organization if you're concerned about that. There's lots of ways around it, including increasing your odds.
Yeah, and I will offer a slightly different view than what Tiffany did. Having worked at big companies and worked with other big companies, it is surprising to me how, in general, the people who are putting the packages together on many of these innovations actually are still the inventors. And while you would expect that, I worked for Dow Chemical, that a large company may have a very active PR arm helping people with these things, it frequently isn't in the training of people who went to PR school to do this, and their ability to explain to a technical audience. And I again, not trying to slam my former PR people. I was told frequently that they're trained to write to the average reading level of the US, which is 5th grade level. I don't think 5th grade writing wins an Edison Award. You're writing to generalists who are smart people, and you need to make sure that you're talking to people, appropriately for that.
This might be a little out of left field in terms of how to categorize some of that, but I think that hones in on a difference, might be a little bit of a tangent, but the difference between kind of traditional Marcom PR broad approach. And when you're talking about conversion copywriting, it's an entirely different thing. You're segmenting down to exactly who is looking at that time and trying to speak to them. And I know Susan is an expert at that as well. When you're looking, sometimes when you go to a web page, the web page you see for if you're buying a consumer product might be different than the page I see, because it knows who we are. And that copy, the imagery, the layout even of those pages will change based on who the audience is. That's hyper targeting. So when we're going back to our strategy of focus, remember one of those key points was audience. So if we're bringing in PR big guns, to Mark's point, they're used to writing to this broad 5th grade reading audience. That's not the audience of the award. If you are writing copy for your socials or your website and you're trying to convince people to buy your product, that might not also be the whole world. You have to know who the audience is and write to that on a more micro-targeted level.
Right. And hopefully we have ground that in, know what your goal is, know who your audience is, and then develop these things. And a quick slide here. One of the concepts that I like to use is this concept of mind ready. What you want to do is make your Edison nomination as palatable to the judges. You don't want them to struggle to understand it. You want things to flow into their consciousness as easily as you can. And that frequently requires work on your part to make that happen. And now talk a little bit about the tools that you have at your disposal when putting the Edison together. I don't think any of you are actually using a fountain pen, but I use that as a written word type of thing. You obviously fill in the boxes, you write words, but you have a web presence, you have the ability to put images into the Edisons, and you have ability to put videos in. And what you put on the web pages, the images and the videos frequently really elevate the packages that we get to see as judges. Tiffany, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about this is every person you encounter has a different way of absorbing information, but you hear about people being a visual learner or an audio learner, et cetera. Very rarely is somebody only that one thing. People intake information and retain information better when it comes across in multiple formats. Think about TV shows you knew when you were younger. You probably remember some of their theme songs because there's music, there's visuals, and there's words to it as well. So the more ways you can intelligently overlay these things as you're communicating your message, the better. When they're teaching children sometimes to spell, they have them add a physical thing, C-A-T, cat. They pull it together because the physical movement will help it go in there. Any parts of the mind and the brain that you can engage while conveying your message, the better. You want people seeing the image of, a world in chaos. If you're talking about something that's going to save that, back in their brain to be recalled from your video if you're talking about how your product is going to save them from that. So the more tendrils you can get into their mind, the better. And Mark, there's something you mentioned really important when you're talking about making it easy for the judge. This is where so what is a bad thing. The one person you don't want saying so what when you're done is the judge, because then you've lost. You need to do it over and over and over again so that that is answered for them immediately. When you tell them the framework, that what is that old saying? Tell me what you're going to tell me, then tell me what you told me. I feel like that is timeless advice, because if you start with the impact, that's what I'm going to tell you. And then I'm going to describe it, and then I'm going to conclude it for you. That's what these tools are all for. So if the judges are primed for the information, you're keeping it concise and to what they care about and focused on the impact, and it's coming across in all of these ways that are geared towards anybody who needs the information, it's much more likely to sink in.
Susan?
So we're talking about all the tools that go into an award, but there's also a lot of tools in your overall PR toolkit. And, you know, speaking of all these integrated tools, awards are sort of just one of the tools in your toolkit. And, you know, the way it obviously awards afford you another opportunity to publicize, but I think most importantly, it's third party endorsement, just like a story on, you know, a headline in a trade publication or a mainstream publication is third party endorsement. You can't even express or put a number on the value of that third party endorsement. It's invaluable. So these wins are just one part of your toolkit, in that they offer fodder for social media. They offer the chance to tell your stakeholders personally. They offer you the chance to tell the media. And in all of that, you're getting notoriety for your product in a way that complements all these other pieces within your toolkit. So
it's a huge leapfrog in credibility. If you're coming up with something that looks like maybe it's a cool product, but you don't have this next to you, it's a lot harder to tell the story. If you are going to investors or people looking to buy the company, or even public with your product, and you're trying to sell directly to the market, this has done a tremendous amount of the legwork to say, no, this is actually pretty legit. This company could not have won this award without a significant amount of work. And that's known in the industry.
And the Edison has that level of reputation and credibility. It is a very highly regarded program. And I'm not just saying that because we're a guest here. I'm saying that because I work with hundreds of programs. And that is really true. It is very reputable in terms of invention and innovation.
And I guess I'll add one thing. It does add to other things. So many of the inventions that we see will be within a narrow silo potentially. So it could be, but there will always be organizations that are within that silo. So if you're doing something that's in electronics, there are electronic organizations that will similarly have awards. And putting your Edison Award package together will give you the tools to be able to apply and spread that to other things as well, to get both industry and broader respectability. So talking a little bit about tactics, again, what you have written is important. The standard quote is good writing is 1% inspiration and 99% elimination. That means that editing is key. Edison limits the number of words, which is actually helpful because it forces you to do some of that editing, but thinking about where your message is strongest and what things you really want to tell the judges are something that you should be doing if you're putting the package together. There are some other maybe stupid little things that people occasionally mess up, and I'll show one here. People, for some reason in the sciences, tend to talk very passively. And I put a check mark next to rope stops people from falling off of mountains is a very strong and forceful statement. Most scientists would write it as something like rope has been used to stop people from falling off mountains, or rope could be used to stop people from falling off mountains. Both of those are much weaker statements. So as you're putting these together, you should try to come up with active, forceful statements about your innovation that will sell the judges. Again, kryptonite stops the man of steel is far stronger than kryptonite could be used to stop the man of steel, or what people, tend to try to write. It would be something like, we discovered a rock that weakened Superman. What you really want to do is still keep things strong and forceful. Susan and Tiffany, do either of you have any kind of pet peeves that you would like to raise?
One of the things I'd like to point out about these two examples that are great about them, and I think universal, is one of the best things about forceful and clear language is it's also shorter. You have a character count to adhere to. Look at the chosen statement in both of these cases. They're notably probably about 75 to 80% the length of the other two. And that helps you. Why waste precious space on words that don't really help? And it's like having a conversation with someone who's trying to convince you of something really important, but they're hemming and hawing, and you're like, just get to the point. Get to the point with your writing. Because especially, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. When you're sitting here and you're reading through all of these awards things, how many hours do you think, start to finish, you spend on the whole process of reviewing awards?
Oh, well, that depends on how many Rob sends my way. I mean, it can vary. And I guess that's one of the things that does. So let's see. I would say that you're spending somewhere close to at least 30 minutes on each application you look at by the time you go through everything. And I do a quick triage at the beginning to kind of, weeds that, there are the occasional people who put something in, from Thomas Edison's era, and you just say, wait a minute, that's not the time limit. So those don't take very long. But by the time you click on links and try to hit the videos and actually understand what the product is, it's at least 30 minutes per application, if not more. And that's why sometimes when people do like 7 videos that are all the same thing, it starts to tick off the judges. It doesn't help, right? If you just have 5 versions of the same content that you're funneling at me, that really kind of enrages me at times.
Yeah, the amount of time that you folks have to donate to getting to this point and do a good job as a judge means that you're spending a lot of time on that. And as the person submitting the award, if there's one thing to absolutely hone in on, if you're not taking the time to make it easy for them to digest it, you're kind of being disrespectful of the time that they're spending on you to get it done. And that same principle applies to your future customers. If you aren't respecting them enough to give them the information they need, they're not going to bother. They have other options. Even if the option is the status quo, it is an option. So we don't want to annoy them with way too much verbosity.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing we do want to hit on here is all of us have participated in awards. And I think that there has to be a disclaimer. Even though I think all 3 of us would be good at writing an award package, we can't take something that's not award worthy and make it a winner. What I will say is that you can take things that are really, really great, and by putting a poor package together, keep them from being a winner. So so there, the thing I do want to point out here is there is professional help available, or you can do it yourself. So Susan, did you want to comment more?
Well, I there's a couple of things that I wanted to add also. I have a secret sauce and a formula that I really can't share unless we work together, but I believe it's evidenced by, I have a really strong award-winning proven track record that spans 20 years. And I will say, to speak to both Mark and Tiffany's point, it is so important to be clear and concise and explain complicated theories or descriptions in lay terms. Mark said it earlier, in many cases, and in Edison, they do have some peer judges, but there are also generalists, and it is so important to be clear cut and try to find a way. And that is why having an expert helps. We know what to do, and like anything else, practice makes perfect. And we have that recipe for success. As I said, I have my little secret sauce, and I've won hundreds of awards across many programs, including Edison and CES and other really innovation programs. And I think to be anybody's storyteller, you have us to help you, because I think we know what the judges look for, how to distill your message, how to write it in these lay terms, how to use exciting adjectives, and most importantly, how to make it fit into the word count that's required.
And
I submitted 7 Edisons last year, and 6 of them placed. And I think the one that didn't place might have been competed. It was, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's a pretty good track record. So really, it's fitting that word count, describing your stuff simply, even when it's complicated, and making it so what exciting.
To add to Susan's point, we always giggle a little bit. You've probably noticed on the call when we're talking about the word count, because even she and I, who've been doing things like this, refining copy for decades, it's still all right, sit down, roll up your sleeves. It is still
100%.
a job. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are at it. It still takes work and focus. And I would say almost never is the draft that you start with the one that you end. And Susan, you probably do this too. When you edit it, does it get longer and then shorter again? When you're, yeah.
And even at the beginning, I always tell my clients, well, I know this is longer than you wanted, but it's better to have more and make it less than less to make it more. So
it's the direction you want to go on there. A thing I will add to this process, and this is more of a holistic across the board view, is that back to being the owner, the parent of this baby, this thing you've brought into the world that you want to win all the awards and have all the great things. You might just be too close to it to be able to do this objectively. You might think that certain features are so cool, they should be self-explanatory, and this should win just because it's this thing. Nobody cares until you make that there. And I would say it's almost akin to having like your nicest relative, the one who's always had your back and just thinks you're amazing, asking them to give you your performance review. You're not going to grow from it. And it's probably not going to do anything. You might get an extra like quarter and a lollipop, but you're not going to get an Edison Award. So you need to be willing to have someone pick it apart from the competitive angle. So what? There's lots of people that do that. What's different? What's different? Why? Why should I care? And if you can't get someone who might be a little skeptical to get to that why should I care point, then you might not be able to get the meat of what you need to do these actual applications. That's probably the hardest part. And I warn you from a psychological perspective too. Emotionally, this might be the hardest part of you submitting an award, is being willing to get kind of negative feedback about things that you haven't thought of yet, and being willing to stick with it so that you can get to the point of the things that both the awards and the market that you will eventually sell to are going to care about.
Okay. So next slide we have is that we're all here because we found that there is considerable value in awards, and the thing that should not be lost is that an Edison Award is part of a bigger picture. You can focus just on the Edison Award or the particular product, but then you're missing a lot of the other landscape. Susan, do you want to comment?
So I think that if you win an award, you need to shout it from the rooftops. You need to tell everyone in your universe. And that could mean kind of crafting and issuing a press release to your constituency, to the media that follow you and your industry, putting it on the wire so the world sees it, and it leaves a footprint on the web. You should personally share it with your stakeholders in an HTML document via email. You should share it on your social channels, and you can repurpose that winning logo, I think, for at least 12 months until the next program. And then you can even put that award-winning logo and the signature of every email template across your company. So you using this awards as sort of a business development and sales tool can really show what, I go back to this third-party endorsement because it really stands to make this win more valuable. And that's what you want to tell the world. It's not just your opinion. Just like Tiffany said, it isn't just your opinion. Now you have proof that other people are in your realm, and it's really an endorsement of your business and invention.
Anything to add, Tiffany?
Yeah, even inventive people who feel like they're ambitious and they're risk takers. Humans by nature, for thousands of years of evolution, we are geared to avoid risk. So I can't overstate how important this aspect of third-party credibility really is. It doesn't matter what you're buying. If you really think back to any of your buying behaviors, whether you're talking about something off of a grocery store shelf all the way to a car or $1 million technology investment for your company, you are trying to ameliorate that risk. You're trying to mitigate it so it is not as strong. This takes a huge part of that away for investors in your business in particular, and for customers, because this has been through quite a few rigors to make sure that it actually has some validity. So missing that opportunity, this is an opportunity to essentially accelerate that social proof aspect of it. You're not just having to say, I think my product's great, and so does my friend here who tried it for free. You're actually having this amazing third-party credibility come in that starts to take that risk away from people. And in all honesty, moving product, getting your product out into the market, getting the award, all of those things, they come from making it seem less risky. There's kind of an old adage. I started my career in sales before I got into the marketing side. You can walk into a room of CEOs, 500 of them, and say, spend $10 now and you'll get $100 in a week. Who's in? Everyone raises their hand. Then when it comes time to do it, who does? They don't, because of the risk. Like, we haven't addressed why that's going to happen. We haven't put their risk aside. That is what this can do for you. And I like to speak in terms of optimism most of the time. I like to speak of the impact, the award, and all the good things, but the risk is always in the back of the mind. So this is the security blanket, in a sense, that helps, months and months worth of social proof instantly done.
Okay. Well, we're on the home stretch here. We're going to go through a couple of things just to finish up. Hopefully we have told you that Edison Awards exist in the overlap of the Venn diagram between impact and invention. If you have both, you have a very good chance. You should certainly be nominating your products for that. We've gone through today what started as my communications hierarchy, but I think it is look at the Edison package as a communication tool, figure out what the goal is, who the audience is. We've hopefully explained that to you, and then do your strategy, tactics, and tools based on those two. So with that, we are now at the time when we can take questions. And I guess I'm a little ambiguous. Are people going to come off mute for those, or is somebody been watching the chat for questions?
I've been watching the chat, and the chat is clean. So people can come off of mute and ask any questions they'd like to. Or maybe you guys are so good, there are no questions.
I can't believe that. Come on.
Hey, greetings. How are you?
We're
Hi.
great. How are you?
Yeah, I appreciate the time with you. I had a couple of questions, but I was wondering how many awards were actually issued?
That's a Lindsay question. You mean how many winners are there
Every year
from the Edison Awards per program every year?
There you go.
It varies depending on the year and depending on how many categories. So I can't give you a straight number. Last year was 150. The year before that was 135.
Okay.
So it varies.
Well, is that some sort of cohort and then it gets honed down, or is that a final award? And the reason I was wondering is there's so many creative ideas out there that are functional that you would be considering. And obviously, if you selected one winner, then presumably there would be many, many dozens who might qualify, and yet there was only room for one. So that's why I was wondering.
Well, there are
the Edisons do gold, silver, bronze. So within every category, as we term it, all of those are winners or medalists, or if you will. So that is a little bit different with the Edisons.
One thing I'll say too, and I hope, Lindsay, I'm not out of line doing so, is as somebody submitting an award, I was really pleased to see that when they got their entire list of submissions, they realized there was actually a little bit more specificity in some of the broader categories, and they did break them up to make the opportunity for more winners to be recognized. I'm not sure if I was supposed to tell you that or not, but as somebody submitting that process, I found that to be incredibly ethical and fair to the people who were submitting, because otherwise certain things could be swallowed up if you were just happened to be in a category with 100 people compared to someone with 2. I mean, those 2 are going to win by default versus something really good could have been lost otherwise. I thought that was an excellent approach.
You're absolutely right. So the first round of judging, they take all of the nominees. So let's say there are 450, and they all get ranked according to their value concept, delivering impact. Those top 120, 130, 150, whatever we decide, those are going to be finalists regardless of which category they initially put it in. So then we're taking and breaking it down by subcategories, putting 3 people in a subcategory that those 3 products have something in common that ties them together. Then those 3 are ranked gold, silver, bronze. So if there were, of those 450, 350 came in health and medical, it's not just going to be 3 winners in health and medical. It just depends how many of those rose to the top from the overall picture of nominations.
Thank you very much. And please tell the judges the pizzas will start arriving at 2 p.m.
Don't
I
forget
like
the chocolate. I'm sure there's some that like chocolate on there as well. Dark chocolate.
Absolutely. Make a list of demands.
Champagne.
Take care. Thank you.
there's another question in the chat about how media look at the awards programs. And I think that speaks to what I explained earlier about kind of shouting it from the rooftops. The media is just one contingency that you want to share. So I think taking a very targeted approach to reaching the media in your arena. So many people who are maybe in medical technology, there's a certain aspect of trade publications that follow that area of technology. So you want to make sure you're reaching the media that you know follows you on other news, maybe a media that don't know of you. So if you put that press release out on the wire and you target it to specific media, and you offer your company spokesperson up and others even from the Edison Awards that might be in that same realm of media, of medical technology or health and wellness, you might be able to even get a larger story covering the importance of that technology, because now it's faring against others and you're all sort of being recognized. So it's really important to take a targeted approach to reaching the media in your specific area that follows you, and then a little broader, casting that net a little further, so that you might be able to show the media that there's several areas of opportunity within the realm of your business.
And don't overlook the fact that it's a time thing, right? So it is a point in time thing that you get to write a press release about.
Yes.
You can't every day just write a random press release about we have a great product. This gives you that opportunity to put things out, to whether it be social media, traditional media, whatever. But it is surprising once a press release goes out, how many tendrils it ends up finding itself into. So that is one of the things that is a value of Edison Awards.
100%.
And I'd say have them ready ahead of time. There's no reason to come home from the award ceremony a week later and be like, oh, we should write our PR. We should have one written for gold, one written for silver, one written for bronze, one written for we missed it, but here's what we learned, and you still should know about our product. Think about Shark Tank. There are lots of products out there that did not get anything on Shark Tank, but just having been there, they were able to parlay that into some type of a, as seen on Shark Tank thing, just as a small example. Susan, in your experience, have you found it a little bit easier for highly specific products to get more coverage in platforms and that are specific to their field? Like if you make it really easy, say, hey, I won this and this is why, and this is how it impacts a field, as opposed to some of the more broad, covered on NBC kind of things.
I really think it has to do with an integrated program from the get-go, because if you're unknown, sometimes it's even hard, even when you win. I think that having a drumbeat that is continuous and regular and exciting is what makes these things rise. And I can't say that enough, because like I said earlier, the awards are just one component, and you should be announcing that new product as a separate, another PR opportunity to announce your product, another PR opportunity when you're included in an award or something else, or a new customer. So I think these things, you can leverage all this and you can rise to the top by having this full-blown integrated. I look at the wheel and spoke analogy. These are just all spokes in your wheel, and that wheel's got to keep moving, and it's got to have a lot of different components to be successful.
And I'll remind too that one of the criteria does need to be that it is actually, you have your website up, you're part of the market, and you've been trying to actually make this a product. That alone, if you're going to be successful at it, these pieces have to be in place anyways. You need to have something going with your socials. Even business needs social, whether it's LinkedIn or something else. Those things that all get the awareness in people's minds. There's probably, you've probably, I imagine too, Susan, seen this model change 100 times from how they describe getting into people's minds, but it's always broken down to awareness, understanding, and action. They're aware, they start to understand, and all the little things in the middle there can have different names. But when you're starting off with one of these inventions, it's got to be awareness. People have to know that it's there. They don't even have to understand you yet, but they're not going to bother to understand you if they don't even know who you are. So these steps just can't be skipped along the way. The Edison Awards will help you with that. They can help tremendously, and they can accelerate things that didn't exist before. But all of the rest of this the picture has to be in place if you're going to take it into more than just, hey, I won an award, never went anywhere.
100%. So shout it from the rooftops.
Yes,
Good luck to
lots of
everybody.
rooftops.
Good luck to everybody in getting the award that they can shout about.
Any other questions that we have? I don't see any in the chat. If I'm looking at the right spot.
Yeah, I don't see any either. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This is recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube channel by Friday. So if you want to catch it again or share it with others, go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself. If you want to be connected to any of these individuals, same thing. I'm happy to connect you there too.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for having us. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this timely discussion. Really appreciate it.
All right, take care all. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.